Cal, first of all, I'll take you back to, what was it, April 7th, about 7 a.m. You decided to get on Twitter, but for a very good reason. Your father's foundation, the Cal Ripken Jr. Foundation, I see when you go to the website, it says transform communities and change kids' lives. And that's what it's been all about. It can't be in the typical way, but you can still make a difference right now.
Sure. To give you a little bit of context, is I've always been a little intimidated at social media. I always thought you had to be an extrovert to have success there, and you'd be willing to share things. And it's hard for me sometimes. But when our foundation was sitting around thinking, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to raise money when this is all said and done? We were talking about our objectives, and the idea came up, why are we waiting? We can just change our focus and help people right now. So the same communities that we put fields in, put programming in, we're all across the country. We built a nucleus of a great infrastructure for a foundation. So it was easy to turn our interest to the need of the moment. And the need of the moment is food security in many of these areas. So we don't know anything about food distribution. So we partnered with Feeding America. And we energized, we put $100,000 up. Our partners, Ollie's Bargain Outlet, Kevin Harvick Foundation, Niagara Cares, Group 1001, all of a sudden they started putting their money in as well. But I think the real value of being on social media is to reach out to the everyday person. And you can never underestimate the value of small contributions. For example, $1 given is 10 meals distributed. And so it's an amazing thing. So $5 or $10 can really have a big effect on some of these communities. And so I thought it would be cool to embrace social media, to go out there. Now, since then, I've been a little bit more curious about it and trying to figure out, what's this mean? How do you do that? How do you relate? How do you communicate? My dog Nash is probably the star of Twitter right now, but it's a fun platform to be on. But the reason I jumped in was to try to help in this need for food in this crisis.
Well, and so you go to ripkenfoundation.org. You donate $1, you're providing 10 meals. It's a simple.
Yeah, 10 meals distributed. I was trying to figure the economics of that, but Feeding America is so good at their distribution of food, and they have it down to a science that that is the value of your $1. And so making that point on social media, a lot of people are hurting, and a lot of people need to save their money and really look out for their nucleus of their family. But if you have $5 or $10, you can join the team and feel really good that you're providing help in this crisis.
And the foundation has been all about providing safe places to play and learn, but I guess there's no greater security than being fed, especially right now.
Well, it is interesting. We used baseball. It was the whole formation of the Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation. It was to say, what was Dad's legacy, and how did he help kids? Because that was really important to him, and he used baseball to do that. So in a simple way, it's not rocket science. We use baseball and sport and the name to get in front of kids and give them an option, a different direction to go. We did that through programming for many years, and then we got into looking at where are the safe places for these kids to do our programming. And I remember Doris Buffett challenged us. She said, I'll give you $1 million if you can raise $1 million, but I want to build a field. I want to build fields. And when we started building fields, we immediately knew the effect and the understanding of these things, because these fields cost $1 million plus a pop, and we were ready to celebrate our 100th field this year. So we've put fields all over the place, but the great value is it's an outdoor classroom. We don't care if they play baseball. We just want them to use it and give them an opportunity. And the communities have really embraced these fields and really protected them from the elements.
You know, staying with your father, and Tiger Woods mentioned this. It's a time that we're all struggling to figure out how to deal with things. You know, Tiger Woods always mentioned, I saw an interview with him, his dad's advice was not day to day, was meal to meal. You know, I think about my dad, whenever things would get stressful, he would say, how do you like it so far? You know, just kind of break the tension. Do you ever go there where you think, what would Dad say right now, or what kind of wisdom might he impart?
Yeah, all the time. And his voice comes out loud and clear sometimes. If you've ever lost a loved one and they had the meaning that my dad had to me, it is amazing that at first you feel like he's not going to be there for you, that you can't just call him up. But it's amazing in your moments of thought, all of a sudden his voice comes through loud and clear, as if he's talking to you. And he might very well be. In this particular case, I would go back to the same advice he gave me, playing all those games in a row. You can't play tomorrow's game until it gets here. You can't replay yesterday's game, although you can learn from it. You might as well play the game that's here. So really, the one day at a time that gets such a boring response to the media. They don't want to hear that. But in order to execute and do it each and every day, you really need to live in that moment. And so now it might be hard thinking, what am I going to do a week from now? What am I going to do a month from now? What am I going to do, if this thing doesn't end soon? What are we going to do? But the best way to do it is, how am I going to get through today? What can I do today? What will spur me till tomorrow? And that's the way Dad lived his life in many ways, and that's really good advice for now.
Of course, we had a Nationals manager who said go 1-0 every day, and they ended up winning the World Series, as you know, last year. So that was a pretty good one as well. Have you learned anything about yourself during this time? Because I think we're forced to reflect a little bit.
Well, it's interesting. We get more philosophical as we get older, and we start to examine things and look back and then try to get the meaning from it, and maybe even understand what the meaning of life is in general. So yes, during my playing career, you come to the ballpark and try to get the best you can, and it was a lot of stimulus at the ballpark. I mean, the day-to-day people, the day-to-day media, people in the stands. There was pressure, all over the place, and you were looking for pockets of time to recharge. So and you're on the road all the time too. So I used to love to come home, use that as a recharging opportunity. And I liked my solitude and quiet. Now, I don't like it that much to stay at home. And I'm going a little stir crazy, but you can always find something to do, and you can always take a positive view of something. And so just like 21-31 gave you a real positive feel and a celebration that we just celebrated right now, if you go back to 0-21, that wasn't so positive. And it was a miserable time to go through. They fired my dad after 6 games. And trying to figure out how you can get through that and looking for the positive side or the light at the end of the tunnel was a good exercise for me. So now when we look at our businesses, our minor league team, it's a spectator sport. I don't know what to expect when we come back, whether there would be some restrictions on big league games and crowds developing, or our kids' business. Our kids' business, it's not necessarily a spectator sport, even though the families come and watch. It's more of an experience, and I think we're much better off. But we're thinking about, how do we become more innovative? Do we change the formatting? Do we do things like that? And the more work you put in, the more thinking you put in, you're going to be better off when it gets back to normal. So it's really cool to focus on some of the innovation, some of the thinking that you otherwise wouldn't have thought of, and maybe try to apply that to the future.
I was going to say we don't know what the new normal is going to be. And when we think about getting back to baseball, sometimes people focus on TV contracts, but as you well know, you grew up with this. It's so much more than that. When we talk about getting baseball back, it's small towns America, where these teams are the lifeblood of communities and the fabric of it. So there's so much on the line here to try to figure out how we do go forward.
So it's interesting. I've had the luxury to have a good rapport with the commissioner of baseball, and we've talked about these things, the magic of baseball. Sometimes it can't be articulated. And I know that he's thinking we need to get baseball back, or maybe a little bit of the healing, maybe to bring normalcy back. And I looked at some of the programs or some of the ways they're thinking about doing it. All pro sports are thinking about ways that they can bring it back. And you automatically assume it's for the money and all that. I'm sure there's a business side, but there's also a side that helps us all. And I witnessed that after 9/11. I was my last year, 2001. People were saying goodbye. I was sort of an emotional mess. And then 9/11 hits, and then it kind of puts things in perspective. You go, well, baseball's not really that important. You're thinking about all these things. But the way that people embraced baseball after 9/11 was pretty amazing. And it was healing. It was comforting in many ways. It was a return to some level of normalcy that I think we all look for. I kind of look at it as comfort food. Your moms would make you something that would make you feel good, and you kind of hold on to that when you grow up. Baseball and the comfort that baseball gives you, and I think this commissioner really understands that. So maybe we need to lower our expectations and not analyze it so strictly and say, okay, this is going to be a different season. We'll make the best out of it. But I'd love baseball back in any model right now. So I'm hoping for it. I'm looking forward to having those guys back on the field.
Yeah, and it's impossible to answer, but do you see a chance of baseball, even if it's in closed stadiums, or do you have any thought on that? Have you talked to former players, fellow players about that?
Well, I haven't really talked about it. So I kind of dig down deep inside and say, what would I do? And I'd be a baseball player. You go stir crazy trying to figure out, let me apply what I trained to do and what I want to do. That's my job. And sometimes there are hurdles and sometimes challenges and sometimes sacrifices that you have to make in order to do that. But I think overall, players want to play. And when you start to analyze it and pick out all the small little things, maybe not so small, that you're going to have to get over to do that, including playing in front of no one. You'll be on TV, but I got to tell you, we all played in front of no one at some point. And we were all competitive, and we all try to win. And you got to ask yourself, is my performance better because people are in the stands? You'd like to think not. They bring a lot of energy, and it makes it way more exciting, and you have to control your emotions a lot better. But when you're competing against a guy like Roger Clemens or Randy Johnson, you get immersed in that competition, and you want to win that competition, whether there's somebody in the stands or not. So I don't know. There are going to be some hurdles and some challenges that we're all going to have to get used to. But I would much rather have something to get used to than nothing at all, instead of waiting till next year and say, okay, this season's gone.
You just watched 21-31 or that game in its entirety for the first time. Are you glad you did actually watch it?
At first, and for many years, and I still feel this way a little bit, is that I want to preserve my memory of it. I'm on the inside looking out, and it was so wonderful and so nice that you said, okay, I don't want to spoil it by looking at it on TV. But over the years, it's been on a number of times, and I was channel surfing, and I'd stop and watch certain sections of it. Then I would change the channel and go someplace else. Recently, I guess about a week ago, I did it from the start of the broadcast to all the way to the end. And it was really fascinating to watch Chris Berman, or to see how young Chris Berman looked, and Buck Martinez. And I looked at myself and I said, well, you look pretty young too. So it was 25 years ago. But listening to Earl Weaver being interviewed, or hearing things perspectives that I didn't really hear. Like, for example, when Earl moved me from third to short, he didn't tell me he was going to do it. He just put a 6 in front of my name on the lineup card. And I thought that it was a mistake. And then Len Secada said, no, it's no mistake. And so it just kind of happened. But Earl said it during that telecast. He said, I didn't want to mess up the kid. I was just hoping I could get through the weekend, which really tells me that he was thinking about it only as a temporary move. Now, that temporary move lasted 15 years, so I had a different perspective. Of course, I would do whatever the manager wanted me to do, and I was willing to jump over. I was a little scared because I hadn't played shortstop in a while. But once I got there, I really enjoyed the position, but I never knew that about how Earl was thinking about it.
Maybe that's a life lesson. You just embrace what you're given, and you never know where it's going to take you, and that applies to these times.
Mm-hmm. Well, Rich Dower was kind of funny too, and a little bit in the leadership role. Rich Dower had 8 years in by that time, 8 or 9 years, and I went to shortstop. I'm 21, and I'm just moving over there for the first time. I'm thinking, okay, what signs are you going to give me for steal coverages and all that? Because I'm not going to give you any signs. You're doing it. So he put all that on me, and I embraced it and really started to understand the position of shortstop, and I really enjoyed that sort of responsibility.
It's a beautiful day. We look out. It's a time of year that you want to, if you're a kid, you want to grab your glove and run outside, and you really can't. What is your advice to kids right now that, they waited all winter to run outside and play ball?
Yeah, hopefully you have a place that you can still get outside and still socially distance and be okay, and so you can do some things. I know my son is trained really hard in the off season to get ready for his season, was in spring training for a while, and then his season ended, and he's going a little stir crazy now. But you can start to learn what exercises can I do within my own structure? How many times can I swing a bat? What's important to do here and there? You're going to learn yourself in this process, and you're going to learn a little self-discipline because normally the team provides a lot of the direction. Your strength coach nowadays provides a lot of direction, and you just follow along. But now you got to do it all for yourself. And so now you have to be more diligent. You have to put a program together and try to get something out of what you're doing, and be creative. You might learn a whole lot about yourself and about your ability to find something to do that will help you. I know my son likes to talk on the phone now, and he likes to talk about situational hitting, or likes to talk about a plan at home plate, because the physical side of that is learning how to hit somebody who throws 95 or hit hard breaking balls. And then it's the chess game that happens afterwards between the catcher and the pitcher and then you. And so he wants to spend his time learning a little bit about some of the mindset that comes when you're facing pitchers for the first time, or what you do from one at bat to the next.
That's got to be kind of a wild. You almost feel like when you're asking your dad, or talking baseball now, it's switched around generation. That's got to be a bit of a mind blower.
It was really interesting because Dad never got a chance to experience it at the level that I did or Billy did, and so sometimes talking about some of those things were not easy. But Dad had a different skill set where he was the coach of everyone, because they didn't have pitching coaches, hitting coaches, infield coaches when he was in the minor leagues for 14 years. He was all of those things. So he had such a general knowledge of all those things that could help you understand things. I have a little bit more of a specific knowledge on how to play the infield or shortstop and third, and how to hit, and I have 13,000 at bats to show for that. So it's interesting to be able to walk a young hitter through some of those planning processes or thought processes on the reaction of a hitter and a pitcher based on what you do.
That's a good way to describe your dad, the coach of everyone. And in some ways, he's still coaching. We need a coach to get us through this process, and they can help the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation. And the response has been good so far?
Yeah, I mean, we had a great start. I don't know. We put $100,000 up. Ollie's put a lot of money in. Kevin Harvick put a lot of money in. Niagara, Group 1001, our normal sponsors with our foundation, they all stepped up. Our board members stepped up. So we had a chunk of money that was really good right from the start. But we're continuing to raise money. I don't have a number for you, but it's been a highly successful program. And the best part about it is we're helping a lot of kids.
And when you really need to raise money, you just throw a Frisbee to Nash. He catches it, you put it on Twitter, and people donate, right?
Nash has become the star. I think the safe way to go about it is pets are always well received. But I like to play ball. I've trained him pretty well to chase the ball. I'm working on some pass patterns, for him to go to make it more fun. And it might be fun to share that.
Right. Cal, listen, I appreciate the time. I know I probably took up too much of your time, but I really appreciate it. We'll get this out.
We do have time on our hands now. I don't know about you, but I do.
No, I'm just I'm broadcasting from home here, but it's nice to have a view. But I'd rather be in a studio, and I'd rather be calling Wizards games or soccer games right now. But we do what we got to do.
So that'll happen again. I don't know when. It'll happen again.
Yeah. And I get the Capitals, so I see your wife's still busy working at home, because I see she's ruling on something or that type of thing.
Yeah, my wife's a judge, and that her work does not stop. As a matter of fact, I think she's working harder now than she did to figure out how they can continue to do the jobs that they need to do each and every day. So it's a challenge for her. So some people have less work on their plate. She has a whole lot more. So she's working from home and the office and her chambers. I get corrected all the time. A judge's office is their chambers.
It's a clubhouse, not a locker room. It's like in baseball.
There you go. That's a good analogy.
Yeah. Listen, Cal, thanks so much, and stay safe and be well, and we'll get the word out, and we'll get people donate, which is good stuff. And thanks for
please.
And again, that place you have up there in Aberdeen, whenever I go up there, I do some stuff with Giant Food, and we rent out the whole facility, and we have a big softball tournament there, and what a great legacy that is to your dad, because you feel it.
It's a wonderful place. The minor league stadium next to the kids complex there's almost like the dream to be in the minor leagues. And sometimes the minor leaguers want to come down and relive their childhood all over again by watching, the kids happen. It's a wonderful experience.
That's really what I'm just hoping the minor leagues get through this period of time, because I know there's been, so much stress on them from so many directions,
yeah, things are changing for sure, and how Major League Baseball, looks at the relationship with the minor leagues. I mean, there was some talk of contraction, which scares a lot of minor league owners. How the developmental systems are going to change a little bit, and even we're going to follow what the big leagues do in baseball this particular year. But we really don't know where we stand right now.
Wow. And then back when your dad was in it, I mean, there was Class D, and there was all, I mean, there were talent. There was an Eastern Shore League, as you probably know, where Salisbury and Cambridge had minor league teams. So.
Well, I mean, the funny part about a minor league team, it's not funny. It's not like the only show in town, but it is a big part of the show in town. And communities like to come to a place and be together. So I look at minor league teams more as a community gathering point. It's a form of entertainment. We don't have anything in it to say into what happens on the field. That's the team's responsibility. We want to make sure they have a good time. It's a safe place for kids to run around and be there. But I think a minor league team sometimes is more important to a small town than a big league team is to a big town.
Yeah, no, it's no question. Well, sports is I was talking to Mike Breen, the NBA announcer, yesterday, and we were talking about what did we miss? We missed the games, but you missed the usher you see, or the season ticket holder that sits. It's the community thing is what you find out you miss.
It's really cool that you brought that up. I loved the reaction for our clubhouse guy, Butch Burnett. I don't know if you saw that in the telecast, because it happened pretty quickly. But after the celebration and after thank you all this time, I'm still in the dugout. Everybody's trying to figure out what to do, how to get this game started. And Butch comes out of the clubhouse and he sees me and he's crying and he runs up to me and gives me the biggest hug. And so again, you make long-lasting relationships in the clubhouse or in and around where you work every day. And to see that happen on 21-31, where he didn't emerge out on the field very often, his job is inside. And so he came outside not knowing if it was okay or not, saw me, started crying, and ran up to me in the middle of the dugout and gave me a big hug.
That's what it's all about. Listen,
Yep.
Take care. I'll let you go and get back to it, and so you don't disrupt the chambers.
Okay. Have a good day.